Hello and welcome to the original podcast. I'm your host, Jamie C. Foster from the YouTube channel known as Insider Mind, and my co-host is Eric Nielsen from the YouTube channel known as the Looney Turtle.
Hello everyone and welcome to another lovely episode of this lovely podcast. Today we...
you're going to interrupt me then?
I was going to just introduce the guest for you.
Hey, I introduced the guest, okay?
Okay, fine. You do.
There's plenty of me to go around, so.
We'll both introduce the guest,
There you go.
okay? I'll introduce... There you go, you see? I've got
I'm not gonna
notes.
be in sync. I'll just leave it up to you.
Anyway, our guest today is none other than the man behind the creepy and insanely popular Twitter account known as The Sun Vanished. Please welcome Aidan Elliot.
Yay!
Yay! See?
Welcome!
See, I had it written down, and you just interrupted me. I'm very disappointed.
Yep,
Don't get in between the man and his notes, dude.
You ruined my notes. I was in the zone. Okay, how are you today, though, Aidan?
I'm great. I'm doing great.
Oh, dear. So I brought you onto the podcast today because I get a lot of messages, as we were discussing earlier before this podcast actually started.
Yeah.
That about TSV and where it's gone, because it has gone on a bit of a hiatus on Twitter, and there's not many people who are aware of what's happening now. And so I think the perfect thing to start this podcast with is you kind of explaining what has happened to the Twitter account and what you're currently doing now or planning to do for the future of it.
Yeah, so, man, where do I start? There's a lot of aspects to this that I kind of feel like I gotta tackle.
Yeah?
One of the main things is that the thing that I've noticed with the Twitter account that has been a constant issue, and I'm sure other people have noticed, is sort of these like giant gaps in time in between tweets. And it's something that I've been wrestling with since really the beginning of the Twitter account, having this whole arc to unpack, and I want to make sure I'm doing everything the right way and like preparing all of these pyrotechnics, if you will, stuff, all these things that happen on the Twitter that make it exciting, make it interesting, the continuity, the characters, all of it. So I want to get that down the right way. But the thing that I'm realizing, especially coming towards the end of this arc, is that I think it's slowing things down. As much as I like having a huge long arc that spans over like a year and a half, as fun as that is, it's also a lot to keep up with. And so I'm trying to, like, what the main thing that's been keeping the Twitter account from going right now has been me sort of like going back to the drawing board in a lot of ways of how do I want to tackle this from here on out? Like, after this arc completes, like, where do I want to go with the Twitter account? Do I even want to go anywhere? Do I want to just cut it off here? And the thing that I've sort of realized is that, oh man, there's like a lot of potential in this universe that I feel like is untapped, and I'm holding on to these characters, which is great, don't get me wrong. But I feel like there's a lot more that I could do with this that could be fun and could be much more painless to do if I like restructure all of this into more like smaller vignette like short stories, kind of more something along the lines of like the Twilight Zone or that sort of idea, Black Mirror, that kind of thing. And so I've kind of been restructuring and planning out stuff for that, and also trying to make sure that the finale to this arc is done the right way. And also the other aspect I haven't talked about yet is the web series, the cinematic web series that I've also been working on since around July. Well, it's been before then, but July is when things really kicked in.
Okay.
So, and for those of you who don't know about that, I announced in July that I'm making a cinematic web series set in the TSV universe that will be on YouTube, and it'll be like an episodic format, sort of anthology following different characters in this universe with all the things going on. So I'm like tackling like all of these things and trying to cross my T's and dot my I's with all of this, which has been, it's been kind of cumbersome, but I feel like I'm making leeway, and I'm really excited for where it's going from here on out.
All right. Do you have an idea when the web series is going to come out? Are you close to getting nearer that deadline, or have you not started filming yet?
I unfortunately have not started filming yet.
Okay.
I had some setbacks because I was moving too quickly. So in July, I announced that it was happening, and I felt good about it. I had most of my casted. I had people on board. It was all going well, and then I sort of realized that I had a deadline coming up because I had all these people who, have their own schedules, have their own lives, and a lot of them going to college in and around fall, and not being able to have as much time available towards my thing. So it's like I was like butting up against these deadlines and like scrambling to get all the writing done and get like all of the production. Like, for those of you who don't know, production for something even on this scale, which I would argue is still pretty small, is still like there's a lot of overhead stuff that needs to be completed to make it a well-oiled machine and to let it all run smoothly while you're on set. And so there's a lot of things. So as all of this was going on, and I just kind of realized that I think I was moving too quickly with it, and I totally could have made it work. But I also was starting to feel like the quality would be compromised if I continued. So I kind of cut my losses, and like I'm kind of going back. I haven't rewritten anything. Like all the writing is still there, and I'm very excited for it. I think it's really solid. But as far as the production schedule, I've cut way back so I can actually do things the right way, which would be much slower than the original timeline was looking like. Sorry if that was over analysis of it all, but that's like
No, that's fine.
It's very, very insightful. We do always appreciate it when someone elaborates in depth on their creative process.
They're always the best when we bring on to the podcast. When it's short answers, it's a little harder because it was really funny. We've had a few people on before where we've got a couple of questions, and Eric always convinces me that that's enough questions. It's fine. And then we'll ask them, and then it'll be the one time where they answer it with short answers. And then we're kind of out of questions, and we're like, so how you been?
Seen any films lately?
How's the weather today? Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that with me. I can talk for hours about anything. I feel like I talk too much when it comes to these things, but maybe that's the dream for hosts.
Yeah, it's the dream for
exactly.
hosts. We just get to listen to stories. I mean, it's the main reason why I've put this together, to just kind of speak to people, get into their heads, and just kind of get a feel of how they tick and how they put things together. We just interviewed Eric's professor from his university, Crit Killen, who's been in a lot of iconic movies from the 80s, and he has some great stories. He can tell a story.
Wow.
And it was just fascinating to listen to how he got into the business, because he got into the business and started on one of his first jobs. Was it Blade Runner, Eric? I can't remember exactly.
I think that was one of his first projects.
Definitely one of his first. Well, his very, very first project was one that doesn't exist anymore, called Moby Dick in Space. But yeah, he designed.
That sounds amazing. Where can I see
that?
Yeah,
I know, right? He says he's not sure where it is, but he got hired from that because he designed a suit or something and restructured some parts of the script that he thought he was going to get in trouble for. But yeah, he helped design the city for Blade Runner. You know, basically that futuristic city that every movie copies of after now.
That's incredible.
He had a big part in. Yeah, it's insane. So that's one of the reasons why I'm happy that we started this podcast, just to speak to creators like you as well, just to get into your mind and hear about your creative process.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have an idea of when you're going to bring back the Twitter account for The Sun Vanished? Is that
fairly soon?
Fairly soon.
That's sort of that's also another thing that I was struggling with over the summer. of like I you know, I kind of realized like I have a lot of stuff that I'm juggling here. I need to like reprioritize. So the priority list right now is get this arc of TSV done, and then move on, and probably will take a break, because I sort of want to it's going to be an interesting and tricky thing of like where I'm putting my footing with it, but I sort of want to sort of rethink about how much in-game and how much out-of-game I want for the TSV account, because right now, and this has always been the topic of debate for the ARG veterans, I feel like, that well, you know, how much should there be of like, you know, what is really immersion breaking, like is like, you know, like out of game discussion, like immersion breaking, is the creator coming out as the creator, immersion breaking, all this stuff. And I almost want to just kind of like dive in head first and see how much I can get away with as far as kind of having a more integrated out of game avenue, because there's a lot of people who still don't know that I'm the creator of The Sun Vanished. So I'm hoping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
It's wild. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons I'm bringing you on here, because there's still so many that don't actually know it.
Yeah. It's crazy. So I'm sort of wanting to alleviate some of that and be like, okay, like it would be great. Like you see like these other creators, like I know it's much smaller, but like smaller in scope, I mean, but like Trevor Henderson is one that comes to mind. I don't know if you guys are familiar with his work.
I'm not sure. What was it he's done?
He does. He just basically what he does is he makes these creatures, like I assume digitally, and he like creates like almost like found footage pictures of these monsters that he creates with little backstories attached to them. And he posts them on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. So he's more on the artistic spectrum of things. Like I think most people just consider him like how you would treat like a comic artist.
Yeah. Okay.
But like I'm kind of in love with that idea of just like God, like I want to be able. I'm tired of being the guy behind the shadows when it comes to this particular project, because I just feel like it sort of gets in the way more than it helps me, including just being able to tell the story. I feel like there's a lot of obstacles there.
Definitely. I think it's one of the main problems that might actually push people away from this particular area. The feeling that, well, you can't get noticed once you've created one project. It's hard to move on to something else because it feels like you're starting again because no one knew who you were to begin with.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just want to like, honestly, more than anything, I just want to like totally break that fallacy, because I really do feel like it's a logical fallacy of like, oh, like you have to be in the shadows to be an ARG creator. I said, no, screw that. I don't like, that's not how the rest of the world works.
No.
Like that's not how the entertainment industry works. And if we want this medium to grow, like I feel like we need to put ourselves out there more and be like, you know, like, hey, we've got portfolios here. We've got stuff that we're doing that's really great and groundbreaking. And I want that stuff on my record, man. I want that. I want to be able to use stuff like The Sun Vanished to help me elsewhere in life. And I think it's really possible. It's just breaking these almost rituals that have developed through, with lack of a better term, ARG traditionalism of like, this is the way we've done it. Therefore, this is the way it always has to be because we've always done it this way.
Yeah, it's one of the I mean, you know, the closest you guys can get to getting exposure is relying on channels that cover you to actually say that this is the creator, but it shouldn't be like that. You know, you can't just expect them to be able to just tell everyone who it is. It needs to be from you coming out and announcing that this is it. I was just looking up a recent ARG. It's not recent. It was like it was a very long time ago. I watched a documentary of it just recently, something about the Jejun Institute, and I think towards the end of that, they actually did come forward and announce that it was all a game, and they kind of had like this little party towards the end. I don't remember people being angry that the creators stepped forward to announce it was all fictional. They were more just disappointed in the story's conclusion. So that's all I kind of heard from the problems. So maybe there is, people are open to the idea that, creators stepping forward and announcing the game is over now, you can all go home. They're not too worried about that. It's more about that if they get a satisfying conclusion, I think they'll probably be happy with it.
That's fair. Yeah, I definitely want to give that. I have some cool ideas, and I hope I can pull it off.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, fingers crossed. I mean, I've seen you work on a lot of things, and you've clearly got a lot of ideas in your head, and so it'd be a shame if you obviously just went around in the shadows constantly, moving from project to project and starting from the ground up each time. It'd be better to actually have a place where, everyone knows who you are, and you can just share your projects one by one, whichever one you decide to work on.
Yeah.
So I guess since we've kind of got that particular part out of the way, and we're talking about ARGs, what exactly got you into alternate reality games? Is there anyone in particular that stood out that inspired you?
That's a great question. Yeah. Definitely Marble Hornets. Even though some would argue that is not even an ARG. But that was my first sort of introduction into the idea of using social media platforms to tell a story in a very cinematic way. I still feel like the way that Marble Hornets was pulled off still feels very cinematic in a weird way to me, that is a feeling that I don't feel like is captured as often with newer projects. I don't know what it is. There's something about it. Maybe it's just nostalgia. Maybe I'm just,
No, I think there is definitely. I think a part of it is the fact that it was one of the original ones. That it was very different to what anything was at the time, and that particular story inspired the Slender Man game, because there's so many different things in there, the pages. The big red building in the game, that's in Marble Hornets. The tunnel. Apparently I saw an interview with the creators of Marble Hornets, and they said that the creator reached out to them at some point before the game took off.
And even the sort of semi-sequel / reboot / whatever you want to call it, the Arrival, Slender the Arrival, had the THAC guys, the creators of Marble Hornets, involved. I don't remember. If I remember correctly, I think they were producers or creative consultants or something.
Something like that. Yeah, they worked on it, and so you think that it inspired that show inspired a creature. Even though Slender Man wasn't created by them, they were the reason why that game was created and why the game took off.
Yeah, for sure.
So you don't really see that happen with many other things. I think the closest thing that had that big of an impact was Five Nights at Freddy's, but that wasn't an alternate reality game. That just had things hidden in the game.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, thinking about it, I don't think anything has been as big as that or inspired something as well as that. A lot of the newer things have been based off of it or followed suit.
Right.
There hasn't been many things that have stepped out of that area.
Which is fascinating. Think of how they just celebrated their 10-year anniversary.
Oh yeah, it's 2019. 10 years.
Isn't that insane? Jeez. It's been 10 years.
That's crazy. Did they say they were making a comic book on that?
Yeah, I think the comic book is out. I think it's Troy. Troy's behind
Troy.
It. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've heard mixed things about it. But we don't have to go there.
No, it's fine. We can go into something else. But yeah, that is crazy that it's 10 years ago when that came out, and that still kind of holds up. I mean, I don't think I enjoyed the last season as much, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless because I followed it all the way to the end, especially compared to other web series. I don't think there's anything that's been quite like it. Yeah, there's a lot of things that people experiment with, but it's all kind of around. There's a lot of inspirations from Marble Hornets.
Yeah, which is wild, just because it's not like, it was certainly not the first of its kind. Like, I think it did a lot of new things, but I mean, certainly for people like quote unquote ARG veterans, like that was like Marble Hornets was like, okay, yeah, like we've been immersed in this for a while. Like, you guys are just now getting, but to me, I don't know. I think it also hit me at the right time, because I was, guys, it's crazy to admit this, but I was in middle school at the time. I was in like 6th or 7th grade when I came across it, and it blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, this is great. This is terrifying. I love this. And there was just nothing, I don't know, there's just not, like, to have like the perfect kind of sort of surreal thriller aspects of it. Yeah, that I agree definitely still hold up in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
it's just a lot of that, just the tone and the atmosphere alone. Like the story itself, I am definitely interested in, and I love sort of the at least theorized what everything with Marble Hornets is really about, as far as the allegories.
Yeah.
But all of that aside, like the tone and atmosphere, I could just eat that up for hours and hours.
Yeah, I think it's part of the story and the mystery that was behind it. I'm trying to think of the stuff that actually happened at around a similar time and what was different. Like Lonely Girl 15, for example, I think was one of the very, very first ones. But it took a while to get into the story. And eventually it kind of just went round in circles a lot, from what I remember. Whereas Marble Hornets, it started instantly. It got straight to the point. It's found these tapes, going to be looking through them. There's something odd about them. Each upload is going to be one of these tapes that I found, and I'm uploading them. So instantly it gets your attention. I think My Dad's Tapes happened around at a similar time, but I can't remember how exactly that went. If that took a while to get into the story or not, but or if that started after Marble Hornets.
I think that was after.
That might have been
after.
Right. Fair enough. So was Marble Hornets the first one with the I found these tapes, or was there actually something before that?
I'm racking my brain. I don't think so. I mean, at least not anything that really...
Not really that made
cemented itself.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because that's a genius setup.
Yeah. It's crazy.
That's like, I'm sure there's like studio executives and producers out there who are like, God, I wish I came up with that first, or used it in a show or something. Because it's great. You can, it's a format, but it has endless possibilities. Like, you could do anything with that if you wanted. I think that's also why that idea is sort of carried on through like Slenderverse, albeit much less masterfully crafted. But I think a lot of people share the sentiment that it's a really cool premise and a really cool format, and to use it in different ways and have twists and turns with it is really exciting, and automatically injects mystery. Even if the story itself is weak, which is also fascinating to me.
Yeah. Did you ever get around to watching Marble Hornets, Eric?
Yes. I believe I watched the entire series.
Oh, did you? What did you think of it?
Yeah.
I don't think I ever asked you.
I don't think I liked the ending. It's been a while since I watched it, so I'm not quite a little fuzzy on the details, but I don't remember liking the ending, because it didn't really seem like a conclusion.
Right, okay.
But overall, the series itself was very interesting. The way that they introduced Slenderman, the way they kind of avoided, like the entire time they avoided explaining what Slenderman was and what his powers were. They left it kind of ambiguous.
That's always
throughout the series.
Yeah, I remember seeing them a few times at... well, I didn't personally go see them, watched some videos on them, because I was big fans of the thing at the time, where they went to some conventions and they started explaining about the ending they had planned. And they said that they had a lot of... They kind of realized that they didn't have to answer everything. They could leave some things unanswered. And I think that is a good thing to to have. You know, you don't have to answer everything. You can leave some things up to the imagination. And I think that's what can stick with people for a while as well, when not everything is sorted. Similar, because Gravity Falls did a similar thing. Not the main points were given an answer and it finished, but there's still a lot of things lingering in there for people to theorize on.
Yeah, and I mean, Lost
Yeah.
is similar in that as well. Which I'm a big Lost apologist. I really love the ending.
Oh,
I
do
feel
you?
like I'm the only one sometimes. Yeah, man.
I think
How do you feel about the ending?
I'm not exactly that impressed with it. That's
fair.
yeah. I don't think I'm like what everyone else was like. Well, what the hell was that ending? I can't stand it. I was just like, okay, that's fair. I think it kind of, the whole series as a whole lost me a little bit. I wasn't as invested in it once season 4 started.
Yeah, then that makes total sense.
Yeah. So I think when I was just like, I kind of got to season 6, I was like, I just want to kind of get through it at this point. And then when it happened, I was like, okay, that's the ending. I watched it. I personally love those first 3 seasons.
Yeah, that's the thing that I hear from everyone.
Yeah. Oh, really?
And I totally get it. I totally get it. Because you kind of, like, again, it's that I almost would say that maybe the problem that people have with Lost is that they say it's like too ambiguous, but I wonder if it's not ambiguous enough as far as like the themes, because through like seasons 1 through 3 you have this idea of like they set it up very clearly, man of science, man of faith, you know, you have these different sides of like like what is fate, what is free will, and which one is like right, or which one works, which one wins. And like toying with those ideas and those questions is really fun. But I think the series loses people when it tries to answer those questions. To me, the answers that Lost provides are totally I don't know, it feels consistent enough where I really, really enjoyed it. But I totally get, like, you have to be, like, if you're not on board by season 4, you're really not gonna like season 6.
Yeah, I that's fair. While you did say that you felt like you were the only Lost apologist, but I think you'll be happy because I introduced you to my mate Jacob Suggs. I'm sure he actually likes the ending of Lost, so you could speak to him about it. Yeah, there you go.
Finally,
Finally,
another one out there.
You're not alone.
Yeah,
there are other people who like that ending.
Well, I almost wonder though, like, thinking back on it, I'm going through, the reason why I brought it up is because I'm going through and rewatching it recently. So it has been a while since I've seen season 6. I'm about to come back on it. So maybe I'll feel differently this time around.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder, I wonder if in an alternate universe where Lost came out in sort of more of an era of the modern internet, I wonder if it would have gone over better as far as audience reaction. Because I feel like back then, like, I don't know, like when I see it, it's almost like a time capsule of all of these responses to the finale in like 2010. All these people were like, not enough was explained, there's, it's like, what the heck, there's all of these like inconsistencies, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
like I feel like people might still be that way, but I feel like we're more forgiving and understanding, and understand why the ambiguity, like as a movie going audience, at least I feel like people appreciate ambiguity more now than they did 10 years ago.
Maybe. I'm not entirely sure, because just with how I see the internet, looking nitpicking and everything about a lot of movies, I don't know how they would actually react. I don't know. You might actually get more people that enjoy the ending, but I think you'll also get more angry people who hated the ending, because I think we're kind of in the world now where it's either one extreme or the other. You'll either absolutely love it or absolutely hate it. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground anymore for people. So that's probably
fair.
Yeah. There was an ARG actually for Lost, I think, or something happened to it. Go on.
They did I need to do more. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of documentation on it. I would love if someone like you took a crack at it, because it's so hard to find stuff on it.
Well, that's one that I've actually been wanting to do, because it's another J.J. Abrams one, and I know there's a lot of people that give J.J. Abrams slack, but his ARGs are usually pretty decent. Whether it's the movie, that's another story, but the actual ARGs he's made, because I've covered his Super 8 and his Cloverfield, and both of them were very interesting. I mean, it's kind of my cup of tea. A secret government organization covering something up. I eat that stuff all the time. I'm like, oh my god, that's my.
I think you'll like the Lost ARGs. Then they did one in between each season, so they had, so each one was kind of its separate own story. The unfortunate thing though, and I think the difference, and maybe you'll be able to notice, maybe you won't. I from what the research that I did, it didn't bother me, but apparently the media department that was assigned to do those ARGs had no idea, they were not clued in on the creative decisions that were going to happen in the next season of the show.
Oh.
So they were just kind of on their own as far as using what was already there in the previous season and kind of using those aspects and making their own thing, which I think actually turned out really well, but it may not feel, I don't know, maybe it won't feel cohesive compared to the movie ARGs, where it's you've got this one thing, and it's all tied in.
To be honest, I've actually heard that a few times with alternate reality game creators. There was one,
really,
the kind of the process between the alternate reality game and the movie, it tends to be split apart, so you don't really hear too much.
It seems like such a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it happened with the Beast ARG, because I managed to get to speak to a few people with that. I guess with it being one of the first ones, maybe that's what it was, and every other one was perfect. But this one, apparently, they had this whole story planned, because they heard the synopsis of it, of what was kind of going to be happening, and then they kind of reworked kind of a story that was going to take place in this world. And then they kind of had plans to where they were going to take it. But then they eventually got to see the movie just before they were about to launch it. And then they were like, wow, this is kind of a tragedy. No one's going to want to follow this story afterwards. So we're going to have to restructure the whole story into before it actually took out. So
that's wild.
I know.
I understand from the studio's perspective, or even the producer's perspective of I don't want my movie being spoiled by this marketing team.
Yeah.
I understand that aspect, but if you have, I don't know, I feel if you have intelligent enough people who, I feel the marketing team would get it. They would know, okay, we shouldn't talk about this, or leave this. So it's just an opportunity to explore ideas and ultimately get an audience hooked on the concepts before movie gets released, and then we get to see that come to fruition.
Yeah, well, I think you need to kind of have that. You got to talk to each other, because they're attached to the same brand, and you're going to be exploring that universe. So it'd be the best thing you can actually do is let them know what's in that world, and then if there are specific things you don't want them to be mentioning, you list it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, but I think the issue is for a lot of advertising companies, it's not something that's done in-house. It's a separate company. You contract to do it. So there's a lot of risk that they'll spoil what you're having them promote. So you give them as little as possible just to get the point of the video across, but not the actual movie.
That is true, because AI, well, actually, most movies are always by an actual film production, but the ARGs are created by 42 Entertainment, or the ones were in the original ones that were attached to movies. So it is two different productions working together. So I can see that. Oh, I just remembered. When we were talking about Marble Hornets and where obviously everything started, found footage segue, see? To the Blair Witch. Yeah, you see?
Yeah.
See? Hey.
He's
Blair Witch
trying
was
to
one
pretend he's clever.
Hey, we talked about this. Let the man follow his notes.
Got my notes here. I'm trying to segue. No, but the Blair Witch was one of the very first with found footage. I think there was one before, like something like 1993 or something. Someone brought up the name of found footage, but Blair Witch was the one that attached it to the internet.
The first.
Yeah.
I don't. You know, I mean, I'm definitely biased, but also, the other stuff that came out before is like, is this really? Like, there's one that was like in '93 that was like, I think it was called like Alien Invasion. It was just like, it was only found footage because it was like a homemade sci-fi movie. Like, that's basically, which is a cool idea of like, that's like it, you know, coming across this new genre of filmmaking almost accidentally. But they definitely, I mean, it was certainly amateur hour. I mean, I don't want to be mean, but it's also like, it was not good. But yeah, man, Blair Witch is so good.
Blair Witch, though, I will say, is like the first for the websites, because it created a website and built its own lore around the Blair Witch, which I find is quite clever. It was one of the very first to properly do that. I mean, I think there was Jurassic Park and that tested out the waters with websites, but they never had an actual
take it
lore.
to the next level.
Yeah, exactly. Blair Witch really went like, if you want to know what the Blair Witch is, you're not going to learn about it in the movie. It's here on the website, because you don't need to know anything about the Blair Witch for the movie. I think there's that. I always think the scariest thing for humans is the fear of the unknown, something that you can't explain. So the less you know about something, the better. And the more you reveal, the less it becomes scary. But I like with Blair Witch, if you watch the movie on its own, you don't know almost anything about it. It's left to theorize if the film students killed the girl and stuff like that, or if, whatever you want. But if you actually want to, you yourself want to explore it outside the movie, there's this website with the whole lore and the history of what's happened at this particular forest.
Yeah. Well, something I sort of realized recently, just kind of came to me, is like the ending to the Blair Witch Project is, I think it's still terrifying to audiences, but I think it goes to the next level when you understand the lore behind the reason why, people are standing in corners facing the wall. Like, the movie doesn't really go into depth articulating why they do that or like where that comes from. But if you read up on the website, read the lore. Oh yeah. The Rustin Parr making the Burkittsville 7, the 7 kids face the wall and killing each of them. That's
a creepy Easter egg, actually. Yeah, that guy. When I heard that connection, that was creepy.
Yeah, because that's like oh god, that's like next level. Like, that to me, that like opens the floodgates of like what the ending means.
Absolutely.
Like why they're facing the wall. So yeah, so there's stuff like that where it's like, man, you like almost need to like understand the lore to an extent to like have like the full experience,
to appreciate it more.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah,
I love it so much, and I'm kind of not happy that the new Blair Witch game just like throws all that lore out the window.
I only just started playing the game, but I got to like Chapter 4 and I got lost. I was wandering around for ages. It's this particular part in the game where he's got a camera and he starts playing it, and I think there's this kid playing with a fire truck that's lighting up by the campfire. What I didn't know is that you're supposed to hold it right next to the campfire and watch the recording, and then you put it down and the truck appears there. I didn't do that. I just played it, looked away, nothing happened, so I was like, oh, I guess I got to explore somewhere. So I went around for I think a good 40 minutes or something, and I was like, where the hell is everything? So I just heard this booming music with just nothing happening. Like,
wow. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that kind of reminds me of I was never actually able to play this, but there was this animator on Newgrounds who made an ARG of sorts. Like, throughout all of his animations, he left little things in the videos that no one would be able to notice. And afterwards, he was like, "Hey guys, I actually put some hidden buttons in these animations." So like you had to go into his old animations, and there was like a couple instances where like there's an asset on screen, and since it was Newgrounds and since they use Flash script or whatever they were using back then, you could actually program a button into an animation without anybody knowing, because people go to Newgrounds for animations. They don't ever remember that you can press buttons in a video.
That's wild.
Oh.
Yeah.
So did they find it?
Yeah. Someone won the prize, but it was just an interesting idea to have an ARG under somebody's nose the entire time, but they didn't realize it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I remember you tried something on your website, Eric. You made a little website, and you
the riffcafe.com. No, .org. riffcafe.org.
He set up this website. He's working on it with other people, and he introduced it to me. And I was like, "Oh, you should have like a hidden page somewhere or something like this." And he got very smug at this point after I said,
I'm like, "Oh, I actually already put a button on this website, so just go to this page and you'll find it." And then he couldn't find it, and I was like, "But it should be there." Hold on one sec. So I went into the code, and I could not, for the life of me, find my button. So I'm like, "Where's my button?"
You lost your own ARG.
He lost his own ARG. Yeah. So that ARG that he created has just gone into the abyss.
Oh, and interestingly, a couple weeks ago, I was in a call with Jamie again, and I found the button.
Oh yeah,
because I've changed the website just so much over the years. I ended up accidentally going into highlighting the button so it appeared, and I'm like, "Oh, there's my button."
Where was the button? I don't think you actually told me.
It was on the FAQ page.
Oh.
And I actually don't think I deleted it, but I found it.
Did you test out where it actually went?
No, I deleted that page a while ago, so it does nothing.
All right, so it just sent you to nowhere. Okay.
Great.
I have my button though.
Wow. Oh wow, great times. Oh dear. But for those that were listening, why we brought up the Blair Witch, it was because it's the 20-year anniversary of the Blair Witch. Weren't you actually planning to go to?
Yeah, I was. So they were doing. So they're doing. It's called the Blair Witch Experience. They do it every year, but this year is like a special year.
Yeah.
They got like some of the cast and crew. And like the directors are going to be like at like they're having a red carpet screening of the Blair Witch Project in Maryland, and then that weekend they are having like a tour of all the filming locations and like camping out in like the Black Hills Forest, stuff like that, which is all really really fun. And I'm sad I'm gonna miss it. I was gonna go, but I just couldn't make it work out. But next year.
Next year, 21 years,
yeah,
baby.
21. Yeah.
To be honest, that actually sounds really cool. I'd have probably, just going into the Blair Witch Forest, camping out, I'd have been terrified probably.
You should come to the States and do it, man.
I should.
I'm serious.
I really should. I was talking to Eric just earlier about how I've always actually wanted to just stay in a haunted house or something like that just to test it out, just to see if I see anything. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal kind of experiences.
Yeah.
If you ever end up in California, they have the Winchester house. Which is actually pretty close to San Diego.
Can you stop in there, or do you just explore?
Yeah, they have tours.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
But the Winchester house is just a building that. There's this woman whose husband passed away. He made guns, and so she thought she was haunted by the people who were killed by those guns, and so she kept building and building and building onto her house. So yeah, it's a really nice. Interesting house.
It's really
There's
pretty.
some doors
it's
that lead
beautiful.
to nowhere and so on and so forth.
Really? So it's like a little fun house.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever actually seen the movie, Jamie?
No, I haven't.
Oh, there's a movie called Winchester. It's
I think I saw a trailer for it. Was it a new one? Like a few years ago?
Yeah, probably a year or two.
Yeah. Did anyone see it?
Yes.
I didn't see it.
Oh, you didn't see it. What was it like, Eric?
Well, it was a horror movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't terrible. Like I found it very fascinating seeing them go through the house because, from what I understand, they couldn't actually record on site, so they had to make their own sets of the Winchester Mansion.
Oh.
So it was interesting to see how the house was constructed, learn some of the lore for it, and then an earthquake happens at the end. So.
Great.
Wow.
That was,
Don't spoil it for me.
I know. I was just gonna go see it now, and now you've ruined it. I just don't.
Well,
wanna
I
go
mean,
watch it.
I went to a couple of videos talking about it afterwards, and some of them were like, "Oh yeah, it takes place during this famous earthquake from way back when," and it's like, okay, so that's the climax of the movie.
That's interesting. I feel like that could have been cool.
Maybe if it was done
It
right.
sounds like it. Well, I mean, like, what comes to mind is like, how the scary stories to tell in the dark movie, like, used. I don't want to spoil too much because it does it really, really well, but uses, the era of the '60s to its maximum potential. Like, there's very specific thematic reasoning for why it takes place at that time period.
Yeah.
And it's great. That's God. Talk about good movies. That's
I watched that not too long ago. That was a nice movie.
It's kind of the same for Winchester. Like, there's a
Was that a good
reason
movie?
that we follow the main character.
All right.
I'm a bad reviewer. That's why I analyze things instead.
Looney Reviews. That should be a new YouTube channel.
Yeah, Looney Reviews. So there was stuff that went on. It was pretty good.
There's an earthquake at the end.
Yeah, it was a horror movie.
Everyone
Yeah, it
dies.
was a horror movie.
So don't get attached to anyone if you watch it.
Like I did. Burst into tears.
Like, it ruined me for years.
Oh,
But you
dear.
watched it last week. Years.
How do you guys feel about the paranormal then in the real world? Does anyone believe in ghosts?
That's a tricky question.
Do you believe there's something out there then? How about that?
Oh, for sure. But I'm too busy utilizing it to freak other people out and to tell great stories. So I'm just kind of, that's sort of like, it's like being like one of those like the seance people. I forgot what they're called. I sound really stupid right now.
I know who you
10
mean
out of
though.
10.
But like, yeah, they're like utilizing this stuff and doing all like the smoke and mirrors and tricks. And it's like, do they actually ever stop and think like, oh, is this stuff like actually out there? Or am I just like,
Does it actually
using
exist?
it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I feel.
What about you, Eric?
I haven't experienced any supernatural events personally. That's kind of a lie. There was only one or two instances where I can think of something that happened that shouldn't have, that seemed kind of supernatural, but I chalked it up to, maybe it was a trick of the light or maybe muscle spasm, that kind of thing.
Right.
When I just moved into this room that I'm currently in, I was recording something, just some random voice acting, and I was really getting into it, and then I felt something on my shoulder, and I like twitched at it and looked behind me. There's nothing there. It kind of felt like someone had grabbed my shoulder, but I just chalked it up to maybe a muscle spasm. Really kind of spooked me for a second there, though.
You've told me that, some of your friends believe that your room is haunted, don't they?
Yeah. When I was... Yeah. The room I'm currently in is haunted. Actually, last week, I had a busy Saturday. I went and did a few things around the neighborhood, and then I came home with my friend, did a podcast real quick, and then around like 6, I left. And I was out of the house from like 6 to 11 at night. So I was gone for a long time. When I came home, I got some food, and I was heading to my room, and my brother was watching TV in the family room. And he was like, "Oh, you went to go get food?" Kind of implying that I was there recently. And so I was like, "No, I got some food on my way home. Been gone since like 6. And he's like, he kind of has this shocked face, like, what? And then he tells me, well, your room's haunted then. And so I was like, wait, what? And he tells me that before he went on his late night jog, because he does that every night, my room light was on, and somebody was talking in there. So yeah, I guess my room's haunted.
I just feel like it's rude to be like I like how like he totally jumped the gun. He didn't say like, oh yeah, like there was like someone was talking in that room. He's like, nope, your room's haunted.
It's haunted. It has to be a ghost. There's no other explanation.
Yeah.
It's like an apocalypse scenario, and you immediately go to cannibalism. Like there's no,
there's no in between.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of saying it as a joke, but there is no explanation behind why that happened. Because again, I was gone for a good few hours, and on top of that, my computer was off. So there's literally nothing else in my room that could make noise, and no reason why my light would be on.
From my personal experience, I'm always skeptical. I mean, I love hearing stories from what everyone has about the paranormal, and I don't doubt for a second that they believe what they saw.
Yeah.
But because I haven't experienced it, I can't say that, they must be telling the truth. Because from my own experience, and I'll tell you this story that happened when I was really young, but there's two perspectives to it. And I'll tell the first perspective from my parents. We were in an old house when I think it was between the ages of 3 to 8, my age, before we moved out. And in this house, there was my room and my brother's room, and I would never sleep in my room. There was odd occasions where I would, but most of the time I would sleep in my brother's room. My parents just thought, they just wanted, they're in that room. That's just what kids are doing. They prefer to be with each other. Because they're brothers. And then when we moved out, I think it was in 2004, there was a few years later where they bumped into my neighbors, and they accidentally let it slip that in my bedroom was the same room that the previous owner killed herself. And
whoa.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think there's a law where where when you're selling a house, you're supposed to tell people if they've killed themselves or there's been a murder in it. And I don't think they told my parents, because my parents didn't know that there was someone killed in that room.
Oh no.
So they obviously angry at that, but then they're thinking, well, Jamie, he never liked sleeping in that room. He always slept in his brother's room. So they go around telling everyone this story, and everyone who's a believer in ghosts is like, oh, he must have felt a presence. And my parents are thinking, oh my god, he must have seen something maybe when he was younger. So that's their perspective. So now I'm going to tell you my perspective of the story. I just thought my brother had 2 really cool beds, and I just like sleeping in that particular bed better than my room, because he had like a bunk bed. One was on the ground and then one was on the top, and I liked the one underneath. And I was like, yeah, this is a cool bed. And even when we moved out, we switched beds. That bed went in my room because I really wanted that particular bed. But isn't it interesting how 2 completely different perspectives and just one coincidence, all of a sudden, it can look like a haunted, it almost looks like I felt a presence when I was younger, when I didn't. I just really liked that bed and did sleep.
I just want to be comfy for the night.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was there, I've slept in that room several times, but I never felt any bad energy, as people refer to, or anything like that. And I didn't know anything about, the woman being killed, and neither did my parents. But isn't it interesting that the second you know something has happened, all of a sudden you're feeling bad vibes, you're feeling certain things.
Yeah. Well, that's why for me, I think like hauntings and the paranormal thing is super fun for me, because to me it says a lot more about the human psyche than anything else.
Yeah.
Like you have these like preset, like you have these pretenses in your mind, and then you start like creating, because you're the one setting the tone and the atmosphere in the room. And so you can almost make these things happen. I mean, it's the same theory with how Ouija boards actually work, which is the ideomotor effect. which is basically like when you have like a group of people touching the glass piece, it will move, and no one believes that they're the ones moving it, but everyone, because it's a group effort, everyone is subconsciously moving it, but they don't believe it, but it's happening. And you can see that actually measured in other, like with like seances and automatic writing and stuff. So I think more than anything, all of that just says how impactful like pretense is, and how impactful, like if you want something to happen, like you're gonna, like your subconscious is gonna make it happen, which is endlessly fascinating to me.
I think it is. There's always that phrase, isn't it, that the mind will play tricks on you whenever you can as well. And
right.
I knew a friend. I spoke to Eric about this as well. With she's aware of it, but she when there's silence in her house or anything like that, she can almost hear a whisper in the corner of her ear, but she doesn't connect it to a ghost. She thinks it's something wrong with her mind, that when something goes quiet, she'll hear like a voice in the corner of her ears. And she isn't quite sure what it is, but she knows it's her mind doing it. Yeah. And it makes me wonder how many other people have that similar thing, but they connect it to a ghost, or something in that house. It's fascinating that, just like you said, the human psyche and just the brain itself, the things that it can create. I mean, when we go to sleep, we dream. We have these images in our head that we can picture while also, with not appearing in front of us. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So still speaking with the topic of ghosts, and I'm not obviously looking at my notes in any way here, shape or form. We can move on to a show that was that took place in 1993 or 1994? I'm not.
I think it's 2 or 3, so it's probably 3.
It's probably 3. But this was this caused, I looked into it, probably one of the biggest controversial shows to ever air on the BBC, and it was to do with ghosts, called
So awesome.
Ghostwatch. Have you just seen it recently?
Yes. Yeah, I just rewatched it.
Rewatched.
It's available. Yeah, rewatched it. But it's available for free on the Internet Archive, archive.org, I believe. I should post the link here at some point. But it's it's so good.
It's good
because it's very, very subtle throughout like the majority of it, and it just slowly cranks up the intensity until you get the ending, which I really love. I don't feel like it's cheesy at all. I really like it.
I do really like it. It's very interesting. I love I love kind of the whole design behind it and the marketing behind it, because they didn't promote it as fictional, and it came on at a particular time as well. I think someone actually said it started 5 minutes before it should have done as well, so it actually cut out the intro for most people tuning in. So they actually missed that intro, so they just tuned in, to like this whole live event taking place, and it had celebrities that everyone knew at the time. That like there's the interviewer who was, I think, a kid show host, and then the other one was I can't remember his name, but he's been in shows such as Red Dwarf and a popular soap opera over here called Coronation Street. And so they were both around at the time hosting this, so people had no reason to believe it being fictional, because it was in 1993, like you said, assuming it's 1993. So it was before anything like a hoax really took place properly. We didn't even have Blair Witch then, that took place, took the internet to the opportunities. And apparently it got around 20,000 calls in on that one night after it finished. And it got so bad that they had to, the actress had to come on the next day on her, I think it was the kids show or like this little, there was this weird show I remember watching when I was young because it was still going, but they kind of sit in this little cupboard with a bunch of pictures behind them, and I think she had to come on in this particular time slot and just announce that she was still alive because there were so many people confused and thought she had died.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and the BBC kind of blocked it. It didn't release anything of it until around 2003 or 2002, so they wouldn't air it or anything.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I guess. Did we give a bit of a synopsis of it? I guess you could give it a bit of a synopsis just for Eric to know, because Eric hasn't seen it.
I don't.
Oh yeah. Oh, Eric, you gotta check it out. It's so the whole idea is like it's like sort of like a paranormal investigation into this one specific house where there's like things that have happened in the past relating to. It's very similar to the like it's these two girls and this mother that live in this house, and that setup sort of reminds me of and I'm sure it's inspired by the same stuff that happened that the Conjuring movies are based on.
Yeah.
Which is God, I can't remember the name of that family, but it all feels very reminiscent of that sort of like paranormal like hauntings in the UK.
That's true.
Yeah.
And so but it's this whole like that they have like infrared cameras and all this stuff. So it's like a ghost show, but it's all happening in real time, and it's not cheesy like ghost adventure shows are now. Like
Yeah.
it was very played very mild.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of the British dryness of it really helped with all that. Like
Yeah. They do,
like,
though.
I love that stuff.
It's very different to American shows, because I think they're kind of similar to it now. Britain just seem to have this. We just show it. we don't
Right.
add any music to anything, which can work in certain areas. But oh my god, when we try to adapt American shows that do not work without that stuff, oh my god, is it boring?
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
Do you remember Impractical Jokers, which I think is in America?
Yes.
With the whole
Yes.
there's jump cuts and everything like that, and it gets on with the
Right.
story. There's a UK version of it, and it is so boring. It's so awkward because there's no music, there's no jump cuts or anything like that. It's literally just there, and you just see the full thing play out. And because we got that accent as well, the monotone accent just taking place, it's just
Sure.
so boring. And I'm like, oh my god. And the thing is, we're not as extreme as well. So our little
Right.
pranks are like really tiny things that like 12-year-olds would come up with or something like that. So it's like, oh my god, what are you doing?
Oh man, but when it comes to horror, like that stuff is like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like perfect. It's like
You need
God,
it.
it's like it's a breath of fresh air compared to, like I feel like
Ghost
that's
Adventures.
the one thing. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing I would criticize about American horror content is that it's just too over the top in a lot of ways.
It's too
as much as I
TV.
enjoy it, yeah.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoy a lot of it, it's too tacky.
I feel it can also be a little bit too formulaic. Like
Yeah.
if there's the way they slowly build it up, oh, there's going to be a jump scare. They're going to have a jump scare. Oh, it's a fake out. I wonder if there's the jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that similar tone, isn't there, where the music is going really high, then just cuts out, and there's silence, so you just know that there's going to be a jump scare at that, or a loud noise at that point. It's like
Yep.
music builds up, fades out, silence for a few seconds, loud noise, and
Yeah.
cycle repeats. But I think we were probably more referring to like Ghost Adventures, where there's this music going on, and I think with American as well, with the American accent, they overreact to everything. Because I've watched that show.
Yeah, it drives me
It's
nuts.
like it's
Like
so
something
funny.
rattles in the back.
Yeah.
It's like the tiniest sound, and they're like cursing. It's like all
They are.
bleeps.
They're like, "What's that?
Oh my god, dude! What the heck? just
Josh, what
happened?"
the
Have you seen the South Park parody of? I can't remember the actual show. It was something similar to Ghost Adventures, but
Oh god, I haven't seen that. but
Oh,
that's
you
great,
need
though.
to watch it. It's so funny. They're literally in the car on the way, because I think the kids hire these. They're like, oh, we got to hire them because our house is haunted. And they appear and they're like, we're here traveling down to South Park. And what was that? Did you hear that? And they're just in the car. They're not even anywhere near anyone. And then they get into and then they're not even filming at this point, and they're just shaking the parents' hands, and they're going, it's a pleasure to meet you. Did you hear that? What was that? Oh my god. Just
Or I think that it leads to the extreme where they piss themselves.
Yeah,
and they're
they
like,
do.
oh my gosh, there's this mysterious liquid. It's coming on
right
my
in front of us. Oh,
Well, it
God.
doesn't help that these are all like frat dudes that are just like bros just hanging out. It's like I just don't like. I wish like different people would be like doing the Ghost Adventure shows, because then I would watch the crap out of that. But it's always the frat dudes. Always the frat dudes.
What's his name? Is it Zach? I think from Ghost Adventures. He makes me laugh. I find him entertaining just how he performs it in a lot of his episodes, where he'll be smiling a lot or something like, yeah, oh my God, we're hearing this noise, and then one of his crewmates will make a joke, and that smile will drop, and he's like, what'd you say? It's like I was like, what?
What did you say?
Why did that change? You look like you're gonna beat the shit out of your cameraman. You just said a joke.
You talking bad about me?
It's just it made me laugh so much.
Yeah, they're so like wired. I swear they like drink like 10 cups of coffee right before filming, because they're always so jittery and like wiry. It's like, guys, just calm down. Just take a breather.
Oh dear. I've always wanted on one of those shows to, when they're picking up the noise, the ghost is saying something. I always
Yeah.
wanted to hear just like a ghost say something like, fuck off. And then they go, did you hear that? I think it said hello. It's just like, let's replay that.
Instant replay.
Yeah.
God, it's like sport. It's like football. Oh my God. That's insane. But yeah, so Ghostwatch is not like that at all, which is why it's good.
You
And
should
it's
send
also
it to me.
all obviously orchestrated. Yeah, I'm totally sending you the link. You have to watch this right after.
Yeah, you'll have after.
Yeah,
It'll,
you have to.
Immediately after, and I'm probably going
Immediately after. It's only like 40 minutes or something. Like it's really not that long,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
I think it's just under an hour from what I remember from watching, I think.
Okay. That sounds
Yeah.
right.
It's not bad. It's because it is all happening live, and it is
Well,
fun.
live, quote unquote.
Oh
but
yeah,
it's all
live, quote
pre-recorded,
unquote.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. That's
which is
the premise
genius.
of it. Yeah,
I love that
exactly.
concept of like doing stuff that's like live, because it's totally a different feel than like something that's edited.
Yeah.
It feels more genuine when you have this. You have like so much of the idea of like what the heck is going on right now, because everyone's confused. Like the cameraman's confused, the people in the studio are confused. Like you have a lot of stuff like that where stuff happens and everyone's like no one knows what to do. There's like these moments of like that just feel so authentic, of like even like the bickering between characters just feels really genuine. It's like, oh my God, this is so good. This is what I wish horror was like all the time.
I
Yeah.
personally really do enjoy the phone calls when the phone calls come in.
Yeah.
And certain things are happening there where I love how the audience is trying to figure out what's going on and the story behind the house, and there's certain people that have experienced it, and they start telling stories, and you have to connect it together, what exactly happened in that house.
Yeah.
I really did enjoy that.
And they totally mess with the audience too, because
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil too much, but there's like some footage that they show where there's like something in the background that's like really, really creepy. And then at the studio they're like, oh, we're getting phone calls. People are saying that there's like something creepy that happened in the background in this one video. And they're like, what? Okay, let's replay that video. And they replay it, and it's not
yeah.
there anymore.
Oh, I remember that. That's really good. The only other, I think, show that did something
So
live.
mean to their audience.
It
I
is.
love it. It's so
The
great.
fact that they saw something, it's not there. The only other show that I think did something similar, but it wasn't obviously a Ghostwatch show, but it was Inside Number 9, and they did it last year. I kind of liked what they did just because they adapted to the internet. So they had to, switch it up because the internet, the people are a lot more skeptical these days.
Right.
So they had to perform their show, have it go wrong, and then have a rerun of another episode and pretend that you're just watching an actual older episode for a good 2 minutes. That's a long time for an audience of this
Wow.
day and age to actually just
Yeah.
watch that, thinking that it's just a the original episode. I mean,
God,
I remember
so
when
good.
I remember when I watched it live. I was watching it with my parents, and they were gonna switch it over when it happened, but I was like, just keep it on because it's the older episode. I like this one. I was thinking that it was that, you know, when the audio was kind of getting muffly and going off, I was thinking to myself, what if it? Well, I didn't think to myself. I told my parents. I was like, what if this is actually part of the thing, and it's supposed to be like that? Because this is these guys that would come to that conclusion. They're gonna make something go wrong. But then my parents were just looking at me like, I don't think it is, Jamie, and they convinced me that no, I think it's actually going wrong. And so when the news lady came on and said that, we're going to have to cancel it, I was disappointed, and I was like, it's my parents. They've convinced me that it actually did go wrong. And so, but luckily we did switch the channel, and then when it came to these ghosts appeared, I was like, I knew it! It's And then it just got really meta, where he actually,
cool.
they actually started, they got texts from people saying that they were live on TV, while they were in the dressing room because the ghosts had hacked the security cameras. So when they switched on the TV to BBC Two, they saw themselves there, and then they sent out a live tweet saying, "Can you guys see us right now?" To see if what was happening, and obviously, thousands of people were watching the interactivity happen on Twitter because that was happening live, and it was really clever. And there's a video now of the guy who did the music for it. He did a vlog, a 25-minute vlog, of him preparing all the sounds and things he had to play live because the music was done live.
Oh wow!
So they because even the performances were, the only thing that weren't were the pre-recorded clips, like the actual old footage that they played over it. But everything else was performed live. And so he had to do the music at the right times, and he actually filmed himself while he was doing it live. So there's actually a video out now. Maybe I'll probably see if I can leave a link on the podcast for that for anyone interested. But that was really
please,
cool.
I want to watch it now.
Yeah, well, I'll send you it.
You've got me hooked.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to it after we've done. Which I think we've kind of can bring to a conclusion now, because I think we've gone over pretty much everything we were gonna talk about. Unless if there's anything you want to add, Aidan, anything about TSV or anything that you're working on before we draw it to a close.
So the moral of the story is check out TSV, watch Blair Witch Project, and watch Ghostwatch. Those are your 3 assignments.
Yes.
Everyone who's listening.
Yes, every time you watch the original podcast, you're given homework assignments because you'll never truly leave school.
And on that depressing note, we'll say goodbye. Okay, thank you all guys for watching. Obviously, you can follow Aidan Elliot on Twitter or TSV. Is there any way you want people to follow or anything to plug, Aidan?
Just the best way to know what I'm up to is just follow my personal Twitter, Aidan Elliot. Spelled with 2 A's, 2 L's, 2 T's, all the double letters. It's what's that?
I'll link it in the description so people could see it.
Fantastic. Yeah, between that and my YouTube channel, that's really
awesome.
Those are the best ways to keep up with what I'm doing.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode.